Matt, guess what? It's Morbid time. Alright.
It's what? What?
I should have died years ago.
People all over the
Matt,
world
guess
have
what?
my
It's
disease.
Morbid time.
Here,
Alright.
It's what?
push the boundaries, take the risks. If you're gonna run, do it now.
People are strange
Dr. Michael Morbius, you've been missing for 2 months.
when you're a stranger.
Then you were found on a container ship that washed up off of Long Island.
Faces look ugly when you're alone.
Gosh, I had the strangest dream. Why is my camera set up? I'm making another video. No! Hello, I'd like to order just anything. Do you happen to do anything stronger? Like 3 bottles of whiskey. I might need them. Oh, you want to know why? You want to know why? I'm watching Morbius. Yeah. Send my best to the kids. I have seen a lot of films in my life. I think the most I saw in a year was about 180 something back when it was before COVID, when we could, do that. But yeah, stories. The story is they are everywhere. And today we'll be covering a certain movie, but you can't guess what movie it is. I could have chosen any film, really. Perhaps I could discuss the brutal and ambiguous ethics of the Northman, or maybe the colourful tax evasion and Everything Everywhere All at Once. I could even surrender myself to nihilism and political messaging by watching Minions: The Rise of Gru. Well, I did watch it, I just haven't reviewed it. But instead, I thought I would cover the film that everyone and their mother is talking about. Still, after its second run in cinemas, the meme world and film world alike cannot get enough of Morbius. And I would like to discuss it as briefly as I can, because I have some opinions that may surprise you. For example, this film is not very good. So, where to even begin? I mean, at what point? I've not made a real review in a while. I wouldn't even call this a review, it's more just me talking about the film. I'm not going to be too critical or too analytical. I'm just going to talk about things that happened. For example, I've written notes on this movie. Like, opens in Costa Rica, and the title card sequence is actually pretty sick. This film starts out with the old Marvel Studios logo, not the new one with like the ba 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 ba. Not that one. It's the old one, which is interesting. I wonder if that's because the film was so delayed that they just never updated the logo at the beginning. I mean, that's a possibility. But yeah, the film starts. Jared Leto's on a mountain in Costa Rica. Someone asks if he's a doctor, and he's like,
I am a doctor.
He like cuts his hand, and some bats attack him, and we're introduced to Jared Leto's character in this movie, whose name is Michael Morbius, which is also the title of the movie. Now, at first, is actually alright. It sets up a tone, a kind of a dark, weird tone. The whole film has this strange vibe. I can't really explain it. I kind of have to watch it. But yeah, the vibe of this film is very weird.
Chance.
I mean, in my notes I wrote, "Oh sweet Jesus, this is so boring." But I feel like boring doesn't really scratch the surface because it's not like I wasn't engaged. I felt like I was watching a movie and I wasn't gonna stop watching it. But there was still this like sense that this film wasn't really done, I guess is the best way to put it. But yeah, artificial blood has saved more lives than penicillin, as Jared Leto reveals, which is great. Good to know, that's good exposition. Anyway, so Morbius is in a hospital. He calls all the kids who come in and out of their Milo, which must get very confusing fast. But yeah, he calls everyone who goes into the hospital Milo, because of course, why wouldn't you? And the kid dies. The Milo dies very abruptly, and then Morbius just like breaks a pen and puts it in the machine and saves the kid's life. And then the owner of this facility is like, "Oh, Morbius, you're super smart. I'm gonna send you to a new facility because you did this." And that happens a lot. The movie just kind of rushes stuff. It's like Morbius is introduced as a kid, and then bam, suddenly he's already evaluated to be a genius. There's no like setup really. It's just he fixes the machine with a pen and then he's Morbius. So yeah, there's a scientist lady. I can't remember her name. It's Maxine or something like that, I think. But I don't know. I didn't really I don't remember, and I watched the film like an hour ago. So yeah, scientist lady comes in and she was like, "Hey Jared Leto, I know that you've been mixing bat DNA with human DNA. How do I know this? Because you have bats in your lab." She presses a button and then bats come in. But at no point is any of this really explained. Morbius is able to convince Science Lady that it's completely fine to mix DNA with bat DNA. He injects a mouse and the mouse survives. It's all good. Martine. I literally wrote Martine in my list of notes. Also, we learn her name 5 minutes into the scene where she's introduced, which is cool. So I was kind of watching the scene where they're bonding and she's telling him stuff about his life, and you're meant to kind of nod along and go, "Oh yeah, they must be really close friends," but all I'm thinking is, who are you? Remember the guy who Michael Morbius killed? Sorry, God, that's wrong. Remember the guy who Michael Morbius saved? The kid who he put the pen in the machine and saved his life? Well, that's Matt Smith, who is in this movie. He's not playing Doctor Who.
Matt, guess what? It's Morbid time. All right.
It's what?
Anyway, Jared Leto has done the test 243 times at this point, and we've only seen him do it once, and it was the successful time, which is great because we don't. In Iron Man, for example, we have to watch Iron Man build his suit and struggle and fail time and time again. We have to watch Batman learn how to fight crime, but also be introspective and realize that he shouldn't kill. You know, we have to watch all this boring stuff when really we should just start the movie with the character already being a genius in their field and already being perfect. There should be no drama, really. No, I'm not going to make fun of the film endlessly. The action scenes are pretty fun. I mean, sure, they look like a cutscene from a video game on the PS1, but yeah, it's not bad. Like when he does this like echolocation thing and like these waves come off his body, it's kind of cool, I guess. But sadly, this film is a 15, right? It was rated R because they wanted to do Morbius correctly, and Morbius is a vampire. It's hard to do that in a PG movie. but it's got the Venom thing where in Venom, whenever Venom does anything violent, whenever Carnage did anything violent, it is completely off screen. You never actually see any gore. It's never. It's not really willing to push the envelope. It'll suggest that it is, but it never quite does, which I don't really understand. Yeah, so then Matt Smith comes back for 5 seconds and is like, "Hey, it's me, Matt Smith. I've come to get my, I don't think you should do this." And then Jared Leto's like, "No, yes I should." And then Matt Smith leaves. That's the scene. It's great. You'd have to be there. Yeah, the Bats welcome Morbius like a brother now, because of course he is now the Batman. That's why I wrote in my notes. So clearly I've lost my mind at this point. But yeah, anyway, Matt Smith comes back for another big scene. Morbius by this point has already gone full vampire, he's already killed people, but Morbius has decided he doesn't want to be evil. He wants to be a good guy. So he drinks the artificial blood, but once he runs out of artificial blood, then he'll be forced to take human blood instead. However, when Matt Smith takes the potion, he is evil. So he's like, I want the human blood. I don't really like artificial blood. I think at one point he literally says the artificial blood doesn't really do it for him. He prefers killing people and drinking their blood instead, which is just gross. Come on, Matt Smith, you're better than that. 2 FBI agents come along now because all of these people have died thanks to Morbius, and for some reason they think it's him. Literally, as far as I'm concerned, this is the trajectory. The FBI agents go and see the dead bodies in this lab in the ocean, and they see that there's blood stuff, and they think, okay, Morbius has blood, and he works with blood. Therefore, this guy, who we believe is seriously ill, he must have killed all these people. And Morbius, of course, he's like, "Hey, no, I didn't kill those people." Or at least you'd think he'd say that, wouldn't you? No, he turns into Vampire Boy and he like flies away. It's all very visual effects and cool, but it doesn't make any sense. Someone in the comments who love this movie is going to correct me, but that is how it felt for me watching it. It was like the FBI agents see the crime scene, and they're immediately like, "Let's just arrest Michael Morbius," and that there's no breadcrumbs, there's no clues. It's just, oh, it must be Morbius. Speaking of things that don't make any sense, there's a scene where a nurse is walking down a corridor, and then she is chased down and murdered by a mysterious vampire who we're meant to think is Morbius, but of course you don't. But yeah, the nurse gets murdered, and the FBI agents, they arrest Morbius because of course they think he killed all the other people on the boat, and it's the same method, drinking blood. So they arrest Morbius and they're like, "Hey, you killed that nurse, didn't you?" And Morbius just goes, "I can't answer that." Doesn't deny it. He doesn't attempt to prove his innocence. He just sits there and he's like, "I can't answer that." Like, come on, man. Throw me a bone here. I'm trying to help you. If you're put in a room and someone says, a nurse who you say beforehand that you like and you're fond of and you know this woman, and they say you killed her, you're not just going to sit there and go, "Oh." But yeah, Science Lady decides she needs to find Morbius because he escapes the prison or whatever. He realizes that Matt Smith is now evil. Matt Smith helps him escape the prison or whatever. I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. So Matt Smith helps Morbius break out of prison. Morbius then appears on a bus, which conveniently is the same bus Science Lady is on. Morbius decides he needs a new lab, so he finds one. That's how it goes. He just finds a new lab. He breaks into it and he goes up to the guy who runs it. The guy's this big tough dude. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing in my lab?" And Morbius is like, "No, I'm going to physically assault you." So he breaks this guy's hand and floors him. And then he looks at him and he says the line we've all been waiting for. I am Morbius. Wait, what? So I was reading my notes here. Wait, he says I am Venom?
I am Venom.
Morbius says he's Venom, but he's Morbius. Yeah, but Morbius says, I am Venom. Just like in Batman, when he beats up those thugs and he's like, I am Superman. It made sense then, so. And then we have the best scene in the movie. Matt Smith dances in his room. It's a great scene. It's all on YouTube. I don't know why it's here. I mean, I get it. You're trying to establish that this guy is living his best life because he's all powerful. But it's just funny. Because I grew up watching Matt Smith in Doctor Who. Seeing him in this, behaving so strangely, I love it. He's my favourite part of the movie. He's my favourite part of most movies he's in. It is kind of a shame that Matt Smith is kind of good in this. Like, he plays like the villain well. He's kind of creepy and smarmy, and his face when he becomes the vampire is actually scarier than Morbius. But God, it's such a shame that the film's terrible. Because if the film wasn't so boring, then we'd have a genuinely good thing. Like Matt Smith, I haven't seen him in a film where I've been like, that was amazing, since he was in Doctor Who. And it's a shame. Like, this could have been good. And clearly, the crew and the cast are all happy with it. Matt Smith doesn't really understand where all the hate's coming from, and you know what? That's wonderful.
It's what?
I'm glad they had a good time filming it. I'm glad they're proud of what they made. But they don't. I've got notes here like Morbius almost eats Science Lady when she cuts her finger. That's like the main conflict between them. She's opening a can of food for a cat, cuts her finger, and then Morbius is like, I want to eat your blood, but I can't because I'm good. It's just garbage. Like it's not interesting. And then after he cuts his finger, she cuts her finger and bleeds and sees that Morbius considers eating her. His face becomes the vampire face, and he's like looking at her like he's going to kill her, and she's scared. They go up on the roof and they make out. I mean, I can get behind it if Loki wants to make out with his female self. But if you see that your friend actively thought about killing you because they're a vampire, and then you just go make out with them, I don't get it. And they're being watched by Matt Smith, and who even cares anymore? And then, even better, Matt Smith reveals his evil motivation. Now, I thought his motivation was he wanted to restore himself, he wanted to get past his illness, he wanted to be strong again. But no, he's jealous of Morbius now. You called him his brother, he's like, you're my best friend, I love you, please don't do this. Let's heal, all this stuff. Like, he clearly cares. Like, the film starts with Morbius saving Matt Smith's life. And in the middle of this movie, Matt Smith's like, you always had everything. I wanted to be the real Doctor. Like, no, fuck you. Don't fucking put in a fake motivation halfway through the movie. Like, you can't do that. My point is, it's stupid. This movie is stupid, and we're finally getting towards the ending. Guess what happens? If you guess CGI battle, actually, you were wrong. Believe it or not, this film doesn't end with the CGI battle. Just kidding. Did I have you going? Would you believe me? It ends with a CGI battle, of course it does. But yeah, as established, Matt Smith now hates his childhood hero who saved his life and wants to kill him, because obviously, how else are they going to fight? He has to hate Morbius now, it only makes sense. So Matt Smith throws Morbius off a roof. They fight, and this whole ending, it looks like an old video game cutscene, and I couldn't believe how bad it looked. I mean, I know the film was rushed a bit, and I know COVID happened, so there were delays, and I'm not expecting it to look flawless, but my God, it was hard to take seriously. I was just zoning out at this point. Morbius uses his power to make all the bats attack Matt Smith, and Matt Smith dies and doesn't regenerate, which was kind of a surprise. I really thought he would. But yeah, and then the ending of the film happens. And in case you didn't notice, I've already spoiled the whole movie, so now I'm going to tell you how it ends. Matt Smith dies, obviously. Morbius escapes, and oh God, I forgot to mention this. Matt Smith kills Science Lady earlier in the movie, and he also kills the doctor who helped Morbius become popular. So, wait, is that why Matt Smith's jealous? I mean, that would make sense if that had been established already, but there's absolutely no hint that to me, I never picked up on it that Matt Smith was jealous of Morbius until the ending. Anyway, I've gone off on a tangent. Morbius kills Science Lady, and Jared Leto is like, no, you killed this woman who I kissed and got exposition from. Yeah, she's dead. But before she dies, Jared Leto bites her lip and gives her vampirism. So yeah, she comes back to life, but it's literally for 3 seconds. This is how the film ends. Morbius flies away, Science Lady's eyes open and they're all red, and then the film ends. God, I was so relieved. Vulture was in the trailer for this movie. Was he in the movie? Yeah, he was. In the end credits scene for 2 seconds, he comes through the multiverse opening, whatever it's called. That's it. So yeah, closing thoughts. Is Morbius worthy of all the attention it's been getting? Was Morbius worth releasing twice in the cinema? Did Morbius earn its own spin-off show on Disney Plus with Wong, called Wong and Morbius? Is Morbius Jared Leto's best film yet? Well, there's only one answer to all those questions. No. Vampire stuff, it's hard to do on screen. It's hard to do, and I can't really criticize the film that much for how goofy it was, because it's a goofy premise. It was so boring, and I think the Batgirl being cancelled fiasco that happened recently, but Morbius getting released twice, I really don't know what's going on at the minute. Marvel seems to just be releasing these half-baked movies that don't really have any real punch to them, like Thor Love and Thunder. That was really fun, but I felt it was lacking, in that real oomph, as it were. And same goes for this. I feel like this had potential, and a lot of the new Marvel stuff has potential, but I don't know what's going on with this new phase. It's just not grabbing me in the same way, and I guess the solution to that could be to just go watch Minions 2 again. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Thanks for watching.